It took less than 10 minutes for Joe Biden to lose last night's presidential debate against Donald Trump. 10 minutes for Trump to hit Biden so hard, people started to ask, is Biden done?
That was an unmitigated disaster for President Biden.
I've never seen a politician at any level perform like Joe Biden performed.
Joe had the strangest, weirdest stare.
His answers were rambling and incoherent.
He looks like he's barely surviving. I don't mean the debate, I mean life.
There is a deep, a wide, and a very aggressive panic in the Democratic Party.
The question is, could it be that Democrats now have to reconsider?
Yes, Biden's big misstep would come about 9 minutes after he first opened his mouth. He was speaking aspirationally about his plan to tax the ultra-rich, but this is how it came out.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look.
It wasn't good, but it was what he said immediately after that turned what might otherwise have been a bit of a fumble into a fall. Even his own vice president couldn't deny what had happened.
It was a slow start. That's obvious to everyone. I'm not going to debate that point.
And you'll hear from both Republicans and Democrats, Biden's problems were just beginning. I'll show you why.
It was agony in Atlanta for Joe Biden, for Democrats, and frankly for anyone around the world dreading another Donald Trump presidency, because the chances of another Trump presidency just increased.
You know, you didn't even actually have to get as far as 9 minutes in to start to feel that the night might not go Biden's way. Let's start with the walk.
Now, please welcome the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Folks, how are you?
Two things to notice in that clip. One, Biden's gait.
Looked like he was going to barely make it to the podium.
He's 81 years old. He'll be 86 by the end of his second term, if he wins. Whether rightly or wrongly, the way he walks has become a sharp visual reminder of his age. And his campaign knows this because they've tried to overcome it.
And there he is, bounding onto the stage. Just a few weeks short of 78 years old, determined not to show it right now.
Any hope that Biden would find a burst of energy, something that would dispel that visual of him growing stiffer with age, that evaporated the moment he appeared on camera. But the second thing to notice, Biden's voice.
Great to be here. Thank you. We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president and what Mr. Trump left me.
It was rough, it was raspy, it was weak.
We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out in the position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, but there's more to be done.
Now, there are reports Biden was ill. He had a cold, which happens, but the timing was bad.
Joe Biden sounded hoarse. His energy level appeared to be low, and at multiple points during the debate, he lost his train of thought.
On that point, Biden's train of thought, there were several moments early on where he didn't quite seem sure of his own facts and figures.
What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 million, billion dollars, I should say.
To be fair, these are small stumbles, but their effect added up.
I'll be the first to admit that that was not a good look in that debate last night.
What does that guy, meaning Joe Biden, look like in 3 years in a negotiation with a world leader? I don't want to find out the answer to that question.
Biden gave a very shaky performance, and I think the real danger for him is that this was a performance that reinforces concerns voters already had about him. We know the biggest thing voters worry about when it comes to the president is his age.
And it got worse.
There are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
Biden's problem, again and again, wasn't his inability to build momentum. It was his inability to keep it. I'll give you another example. A very sort of surreal moment during the debate where the two candidates are literally talking about who's better at golf. The whole thing is silly, but watch how that exchange ends.
I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have, you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Let's
not act like Joe.
President.
Donald Trump didn't prepare nearly as much. He went to a rally, he did podcast interviews, and if someone asked him, how are you preparing? He said, I'm preparing by taking questions from you, which is not traditional debate prep. Biden did not only do traditional debate prep, which is, you have a mock debate in a mock studio. He holed up with his advisors at Camp David for an entire week.
Even during Biden's closing statement, the moment where it's just you and America, no sparring, no improvising, all you have to do is leave the viewer with a lasting impression of hope and strength. But Biden struggled about 55 seconds in.
What I did, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies.
But you know what really did Biden in? How we knew from almost the very start that Biden was outgunned? It wasn't the little slip-ups.
Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400.
It wasn't the fact that he repeatedly lost track of time.
We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you, President Biden. Thank you, President Biden.
And we should encourage businesses to have.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make child care more affordable?
I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way.
No. I go back to the clip we showed you at the very start. The first moment that set the stage for Joe Biden to fail. But this time, watch how Trump made the most of it.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare.
I think that was one of the absolute low points for the president in last night's debate. He lost his train of thought. He had an exceptionally long pause.
Biden couldn't get back to the road. He just failed to articulate the case for his own presidency. And it happened early in the debate when there's the largest viewership. And it's going to make history. It was a moment people will remember forever, as long as they remember these debates.
Now, for all of Biden's weakness, I don't want to leave you with the impression that Trump only showed strength.
I think he just showed that he is going to double and triple down on the same sort of rhetorical strategies that he's been using since he got into politics. Ignore the question, hit his talking points over and over again. If you're confronted with an inconvenient fact, just lie or make something up.
Trump was so often either unable or unwilling to give straight answers on so many questions. On the Israel-Hamas war, he ranted about NATO. On climate change, he talked about policing. On the January 6th insurrection, he talked about everything but.
What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world.
And I also don't want to leave you with the impression that Biden could do no right. It was a 90-minute debate. Biden did have powerful moments.
He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began. Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. Never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. Never heard so much foolishness. The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now. What are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
But most people, when they watch debates, I don't know if it's so much about who scores the most points. It might be more about who gives up the most points, especially in a race where the candidates are neck and neck in the polls, where both are so passionately disliked by so many people, and where each candidate's competence, their fitness to be president, was on trial.
Okay, well, the thing about Biden is that he's changed. And the thing about Trump is that he hasn't changed. And here's what I mean by both. Biden was incapable of articulating a case for himself. He struggled to connect basic facts together, struggled to make the elevator pitch for his presidency, which you'd think would be a relatively simple thing for an experienced politician to do.
He continually lost his train of thought, mumbling, bumbling, stumbling, fumbling, dazed and confused.
He did nothing to disabuse, I think, the country of the notion that he is very old and was lost frequently.
Trump, meanwhile, made wild claims. He lied. He exaggerated. He refused to say he'll accept the election result. In any normal time, under any normal circumstances, that would be the story today. But it's not the reaction people are having.
Right now, Democrats are torn. Did Biden just have a bad night, or is he a bad candidate? Did he lose the debate, or has he lost his base?
I'm not going to spend all night with you talking about the last 90 minutes when I've been watching the last 3.5 years of performance.
You don't turn your back because of one performance. What kind of party does that?
His job was to calm his party, to make them feel that, yes, I can do this. I have 4 more years in me. He did not do that. He did the opposite of that.
I should say, it's not a given that any of this will be the deciding factor come election night. I mean, that's still more than 4 months away. And most Americans don't watch debates, but many swing voters do.
I love that guy. That's a good man. He loves his country. He's doing the best that he can, but he had a test to meet tonight to restore confidence of the country and of the base, and he failed to do that. And I think there's a lot of people who are going to want to see him consider taking a different course now.
Biden is not going anywhere if Biden doesn't want to go there. This is somebody who has been running for president off and on since 1983. And I don't know that he would be willing to walk away from the presidency after one term.
One thing watching American politics the last few years has taught me is to never declare anything impossible, because anything can happen.
And if Democrats do decide to pressure their leader to step down in favor of someone who will give them more of a fighting chance against Donald Trump, time is running out. And their greatest concern, that even when Biden wasn't stumbling, he was ineffective. And that Trump, by comparison, has never looked stronger.